I'm dealing with shit. I'm dealing.
Yo, the internet is absolutely losing its mind right now. We've seen the industry get messy before, but what's happening between Finesse2tymes and J Prince Jr. just hit a whole different level of dark. We aren't just talking about a couple of rappers trading shots on social media anymore. We are talking about fresh, raw footage of these two, former business partners who were supposed to be building a billion-dollar empire, literally throwing hands in a full-blown physical altercation that has the entire hip-hop community frozen. But look, before you go thinking this is just another celebrity scrap for the blogs, you need to understand the nightmare behind the lens. This is the breaking point of a man who was just on live, tears streaming down his face, crying out for his freedom. This is about how a family worth $300 million reportedly turned a man's own blood against him and locked him in a contract that industry experts are calling a modern-day cage. From the private jets and mob ties chains in 2022 to the leaked 2026 paperwork that exposed the truth, everything is coming to light. We're breaking down the deal, the betrayal, and the moment the streets finally pushed Finesse to the edge. Strap in, because this is the real story they don't want you to see. To really understand why this footage is shaking the culture the way it is, you've got to rewind the tape all the way back to the jump. This isn't just about two dudes losing their cool in a parking lot or a club. This is the final, violent explosion of a relationship that was built on a foundation of desperation and what many are calling a legal trap. We've got to go back to the summer of 2022. Imagine the scene. Ricky Hampton Jr., the man the world knows as Finesse2tymes, is finally touching down after doing a nearly 4-year bid in the feds. He'd been down since 2017, following that wild situation in a Forest City, Arkansas nightclub involving an AK-style pistol. He did his time like a soldier, kept his head up, and the moment he stepped back onto the bricks, the entire music industry was holding its breath. He was the hottest free agent in the game, a street legend with a flow that felt like a lightning strike. Every label head with a checkbook was circling, but one man moved faster and louder than everyone else. J Prince Jr., the head honcho of Mob Ties Records, didn't just send an email or a scout. He personally scooped Finesse up in a private jet. He rolled out the red carpet like Finesse was royalty returning to his throne. He draped a massive Mob Ties chain around his neck, and to the outside world it looked like a movie. It looked like the ultimate come-up. You've got to remember, Mob Ties isn't just some startup indie label operating out of a basement. This is a direct branch of the legendary Rap-A-Lot Records, an institution founded by J Prince Sr. back in 1986. We're talking about the house that built the Ghetto Boys, Scarface, and Bun B. This is Houston royalty, an empire built on a reputation that commands both deep respect and a level of fear that most people in this industry won't even admit to out loud. So when Finesse put his John Hancock on that contract, he wasn't just signing a deal. He thought he was getting initiated into a dynasty that would protect him and elevate him to the stratosphere. But as the old saying goes, if it looks too good to be true, you better read the fine print twice. Fast forward to January 2026, and the fairy tale officially flipped into a horror story. A document leaked through Rap Intel that sent shockwaves through the legal side of the industry. Experts who looked at the paperwork didn't just call it a bad deal, they called it predatory. The breakdown was enough to make any artist's stomach turn. Reportedly, the split was 35% to Finesse, 35% to Mob Ties, and the remaining 30% was funneled directly to JP Rince Entertainment, also known as JPE. Now do the math. That leaves Finesse with a minority share of his own labor, but it gets even nastier. This wasn't just about album sales. This split reached its hand into everything: foreign royalties, merch, touring revenue, and basically every single cent that the name Finesse2tymes could generate. But the real poison in the well was the managerial control. According to those leaked reports, JPE maintained full operational power over all business decisions. That means even if Finesse wanted to take a deal, play a show, or drop a video, he couldn't move an inch without the Prince family giving him the green light. He had traded his physical shackles in prison for a set of golden handcuffs that were starting to chafe. The pressure cooker finally blew in mid-January 2026 during a series of viral live streams that no one who saw them will ever forget. This wasn't the clouded-up Finesse we were used to seeing. This was a 33-year-old man, a father of 10, at the absolute end of his rope. Tears were literally streaming down his face in front of thousands of viewers. He started breaking down the reality of his glamorous life under mob ties. He talked about producing 2 entire projects with almost zero promotion from the label. He claimed he was shelling out 10 to 15 racks of his own money just to get music videos filmed because the label wouldn't back him. But the part that really hurt, the part you could hear in the crack of his voice, was when he talked about the missed opportunities. He alleged that Mob Ties was turning down massive show offers and independent deals that could have been worth anywhere from $10 to $20 million. He felt like he was being intentionally stifled, kept small enough to control, but worked hard enough to keep the checks rolling into the Prince family accounts. I'm dealing with, they daddy worth 300-something million dollars, bro. That line right there, that's the heart of the whole conflict. Finesse was pointing out the massive, insurmountable power dynamic. He was looking at a family born into generational wealth, sitting on a throne built over 4 decades, and contrasting it with his own reality. He said, "My mom and dad ain't never been worth 10,000. Think about the weight of that. You have a man who came from the mud, who robbed, killed, stole, deceived, fought, and died, just to get a seat at the table, only to find out the people holding the keys were silver spoon kids who didn't understand his struggle, and in his eyes didn't care about it. He felt like he was being treated like a commodity rather than a human being. He even went as far as offering to drop 5 complete albums back to back just to buy his way out of the contract. But he claimed J. Prince Jr. was ducking meetings and avoiding the conversation entirely. While Finesse was spiraling, the rest of the industry was watching with a mix of pity and "I told you so." Lil Woody, during a sit-down on Vlad TV that went nuclear, didn't hold back. He went straight for the jugular, mocking Finesse for not being able to read the very trap he walked into. Woody's words were cold. The only reading he should have been doing is to read that contract from Mob Ties. He flipped the whole literacy debate on its head, telling Finesse that he couldn't call anyone else uneducated when he'd essentially turned himself into a slave by signing that paperwork. Woody's point was that it didn't take a rocket scientist or a Harvard degree to see the red flags. In the streets, you're taught to spot a hustle a mile away. And yet, Finesse, a man who prides himself on being a street general, missed the biggest hustle of his life. This sets the stage for the violence we're seeing now. You have a man who feels exploited, financially drained, and emotionally broken, facing off against a family legacy that doesn't bow to anyone. Finesse isn't just fighting J. Prince Jr. in that footage. He's fighting the ghost of the deal he signed in 2022. He's fighting the realization that the private jet that picked him up from prison was just a different kind of transport to a different kind of cell. The tension had been building for years. Dice games that almost turned into shootouts, affiliates snatching chains, and heated exchanges that OG Boo Dirty had to step in and de-escalate back in 2024. But by 2026, the words were over. The crying on Lev was over. The only thing left was the physical manifestation of all that resentment. When you see those hands flying in the viral clip, you aren't just seeing a fight, you're seeing the explosion of a 3-year-old pressure cooker that finally reached its limit. If that contract was the sickness, then what happened next was the infection spreading through every single relationship Finesse2tymes had, eating away at alliances, destroying bonds built in the trenches, and pulling innocent people into a war zone they never signed up for. You see, the fallout from this Mob Ties situation didn't just stay in its lane between Finesse and J. Prince Jr. It spilled over into other beefs, other feuds, and other confrontations that collectively created the most chaotic, most turbulent, and most destructive stretch in Finesse's already wild life. And no relationship got hit harder, more publicly, or more unnecessarily than the one between Finesse and his former label mate, Honeycomb Brazy. To really get the full picture of why the streets are so divided right now, you have to understand how these two linked up in the first place, because it started in a place where most real connections in the southern rap world are forged, behind the wall. While Honeycomb Brazy was doing a bid stemming from those tragic 2021 charges, and Finesse was locked in on his own federal case, cats in the system who knew both of them started playing matchmaker. Finesse has gone on record describing how he'd be in the SHU, rapping on the door, and the homies would tell him he reminded them of Honeycomb. At first, Finesse didn't even know who the man was, but the word of mouth was so strong he couldn't ignore it. Once he got transferred to a facility in Atlanta with phone access, he finally saw the hype for himself. He saw the movement Honeycomb was building from a cell and reached out. The connection was instant. It was two thoroughbred street rappers who recognized the realness in each other, building a bond rooted in mutual respect and shared struggle. Honeycomb Brazy stayed 10 toes down for Finesse while he was on lock, and this is the part that really stings when you look at where they ended up. Honeycomb reportedly turned down a $40,000 feature bag from Moneybagg Yo just because he was riding with Finesse. On top of that, he was sending bread to Finesse's books, reportedly $1,500. When a man who is locked up takes money out of his own family's pocket to make sure you're eating, that gesture carries a weight that can't be measured in dollar signs. But the moment Finesse touched down in 2022, the whole thing went sideways almost immediately. Honeycomb expected that same level of loyalty to be returned, and Finesse says he was with it, but the timing was a complete disaster. Imagine being 3 days fresh out of the feds, fumbling through an airport for the first time in years, feeling like an alien in the world. Finesse describes a scene where he's trying to navigate a smartphone in an airport, and Honeycomb is on the phone pressing him to Zelle money. Finesse claims he didn't even know what a Zelle was at the time. He felt overwhelmed, and when he couldn't deliver the money the exact second Honeycomb wanted it, the dynamic shifted from brotherhood to a public spectacle. Finesse eventually slid some bread over, reportedly $1,500 to 2 stacks, and thought the situation was dead, but the silence crept back in. Then came the request for Finesse to pull up on Honeycomb's mother with cash. Finesse says he wanted to do it, but was posted in Memphis and couldn't get his people to move fast enough. That's when the internet took over. The fallout got ugly fast. Honeycomb Brazy dropped that "Why He Lie" diss track, painting Finesse as a cap artist who used people for their loyalty and threw them away. Finesse clapped back by trolling Brazy all over social media, questioning his manhood and his street standing. But then Finesse did the unthinkable. He went after Honeycomb's mother, Miss T, in the hood. That's like detonating a nuclear bomb on sacred ground. You don't bring parents into rap beef. It turned a professional disagreement into a blood feud. Then came the snitching accusations. Honeycomb pointed the finger at Finesse for FBI surveillance connected to his 2023 arrest. It looked like the end of their brotherhood forever. But then, in a move that absolutely nobody saw coming, the narrative shifted again. By late 2025, after all the diss tracks and the disrespect, they buried the hatchet. Why? Because they finally realized they had been going to war with each other over crumbs, while the real op, the label and the contract, was the one eating the whole cake. They realized they were being finessed into fighting while the people at the top were getting richer off their drama. But even as that fire was being put out, others were being lit. The culture started side-eyeing Finesse for his association with Moneybagg Yo right after getting out, especially since Honeycomb had sacrificed a bag for him. TTE Naughty broke it down best, saying that when you sign a deal out of desperation instead of strategy, you end up feeding at the mouth for some green and turning your life into a misery. And the pressure wasn't just coming from fellow rappers. The industry sharks were circling. Wack 100 went on a public rampage against J. Prince Jr., making explosive accusations about how the Prince family was moving in Houston. Wack declared he was done staying quiet about foul moves and threatened to expose the whole operation. At the same time, 1,090 Jake and DJ academics were fueling the fire, with academics even posting a $20,000 bounty for anyone Finesse supposedly told on to come forward. A man named Seti Nash went viral claiming he was in the paperwork, and the internet was having a field day trying to dismantle Finesse's reputation. Through all of this, Finesse was still fighting the legal system. Between September 2025 and January 2026, he caught multiple drug busts and was dealing with supervised release violations. He was fighting the feds, he was fighting the labels, he was fighting his former homies, and he was fighting the court of public opinion all at the same time. The mental and emotional pressure was reaching a boiling point. You have a man who feels like his back is against the wall, with 10 kids counting on him, watching his career be stifled by a contract he can't get out of, while being mocked by the very people who were supposed to guide him. This is the environment that led to that emotional breakdown on Live. This is the stress that led to the viral footage of him and J. Prince Jr. finally clashing. The blood was in the water, and everyone, from the biggest blogs to the smallest street affiliates, was waiting for the shark to bite. Finesse wasn't just a rapper anymore. He was a man pushed to the absolute brink, and as we move into the final chapter of this saga, the question isn't just about the music, it's about survival. Now we have to get into the part of this whole situation that most people, and I mean content creators, media personalities, and industry insiders, are genuinely afraid to talk about out loud. This is the part that makes other YouTubers pull back on their words, that makes people in the business speak in codes and whispers, and that makes even the most outspoken voices in hip-hop media think twice before hitting that record button. Because to fully grasp the magnitude of what Finesse2tymes is dealing with right now, and to fully comprehend exactly how serious it is when that viral footage shows him standing in the face of J. Prince Jr., you have to understand who the Prince family really is, what they have constructed over the course of nearly 40 years, and why so many people in the culture believe that going against them is not just a bad business decision, but a potentially life-altering mistake. We are talking about a dynasty that has moved through the music industry with a level of power and mystery that is almost unprecedented. It all starts with the patriarch, J. Prince Sr. Born James Prince in Houston, Texas, back in 1965, he established Rap-A-Lot Records in 1986. Initially, it was just a vehicle to keep his younger stepbrother and the homies in the neighborhood away from the street life, but that label went on to become one of the most dominant forces in Southern hip-hop history. But the business side of the Rap-A-Lot operation has always had a shadow hanging over it. Back in the 1990s, the DEA kicked off a full-scale federal investigation based on suspicions that the label was being used as a front for a major drug trafficking operation. The probe ran for years, involving wiretaps and informants, the kind of heat that usually takes down entire empires. But at the end of the day, it produced zero charges against Prince. Instead, in a wild twist of fate, the two lead DEA agents got hit with convictions for corrupt conduct. Prince has consistently called the whole thing a racially motivated witch hunt, and the outcome solidified his street legend status as a man who is essentially untouchable. When you beat the feds at their own game, you aren't just a label boss anymore. You are an icon of power. His son, J. Prince Jr., stepped into this family legacy and inherited both the empire and the mystique. Jr. first made major noise in the industry when he discovered a young actor and aspiring rapper named Drake on MySpace back in 2007. He put him in contact with Lil Wayne and facilitated the deal that brought Drizzy to Young Money. That one move changed the entire course of music history and led to a 2012 lawsuit where Just Prince sued Cash Money for millions in unpaid royalties, eventually settling for a reported $11 million. So when you hear J. Prince Jr.'s name ring out, you aren't just hearing about a guy who likes rap music. You are hearing the name of a man who moves with generational weight and hundreds of millions of dollars behind every single step he takes. But the smoke surrounding Jr. goes way beyond courtroom battles and royalty checks. The reputation of the family has been tested by some of the most tragic and high-profile incidents in recent memory. On November 1st, 2022, the culture was rocked when Migos rapper Takeoff was shot and killed at a Houston bowling alley during a private event that J. Prince Jr. was hosting. Footage from that night showed Jr. walking right past Takeoff's body, a clip that set off a firestorm of outrage and conspiracy theories across the internet. Offset, Takeoff's own brother in music, publicly went at the Prince family, calling them ops straight up. Then there are the allegations connected to the murder of Duke the Jeweler, with online breakdowns claiming Jr. set the whole thing up during a dice game. On top of that, unverified sex trafficking allegations surfaced in 2023 across multiple platforms. Through every single one of these situations, through all the noise and the accusations, the Prince family has maintained a stone-cold silence. In the streets, that kind of quiet isn't just a lack of words. It's a statement of power. It says they don't have to explain themselves to anyone. This is the family that Finesse2tymes decided to challenge on a public stage, This is the family whose son he went chest to chest with in the footage that has the whole internet on fire. And this is exactly why people from every corner of the culture are holding their breath. They see Finesse, a man already struggling with his own legal demons, going up against a machine that has survived the DEA, the feds, and decades of industry warfare. Whack 100 has been one of the few voices willing to speak on it, laying out his own read on what is going down in Houston. Whack claimed the club scene down there has been torn apart and declared he was done staying quiet about people moving foul. He even got into a heated exchange about the snitch label, arguing that exposing crooked behavior isn't snitching, it's just the truth. But Whack is an outsider looking in. Finesse is a man who is signed to the paperwork. He is inside the house trying to burn it down while he's still locked in the basement. And as of February 2026, J. Prince Jr. has not said a single solitary word in response to any of this. Not to Finesse's emotional cries on live, not to the viral footage of their scrap, not to any of the accusations flying around the blogs, nothing. In the culture, that kind of silence carries a gravity that words simply cannot match. It leaves everyone wondering, is the silence a chess move or is it a threat? For Finesse, the stakes could not be stacked any higher. His legal troubles keep piling on with supervised release violations and multiple drug collars in late 2025 and early 2026. He is being watched by the feds with a magnifying glass. A physical altercation with J. Prince Jr. caught on camera is precisely the type of situation that could put him right back behind the wall for a long, long time. At 33 years old, with 10 kids counting on him to be there and provide, Finesse is navigating a minefield. The fans keep pushing him to lawyer up and fight for his independence, to break free from the 35-35-30 split in the managerial grip of JPE. But as long as that contract is sitting in a filing cabinet with his signature on it, and as long as J. Prince Jr. holds the keys to his catalog and his career, Finesse is in a fight that no viral footage can resolve. He is fighting a dynasty that was built before he even started rapping. He is fighting a system where the Silver Spoon kids have the lawyers, the history, and the untouchable status of their father's legacy. Every time he checks the internet and sees that footage of himself throwing hands, he has to know that he's not just fighting a person, he's fighting an empire. The blood is in the water, the sharks are circling, and the entire hip-hop world is watching to see if Finesse2tymes can actually do the impossible, and finesses his way out of a trap that was designed to be a cage. It's a high-stakes game of chess where one wrong move doesn't just mean a loss, it means the end of a career, or worse. Man, this whole situation is a masterclass in why you absolutely have to keep your eyes wide open in this industry. Finesse is out here fighting for his life, his 10 kids, and his entire legacy, while the Prince family stays silent, moving like ghosts in the Houston fog. It's a wild, heavy reminder that sometimes the biggest ops aren't waiting for you in the streets. They're sitting in the boardroom with a pen and a 35% stake in your soul. But now I really want to hear from the community. After seeing the breakdown of that predatory contract and the raw footage of these two finally reaching the breaking point, where do you stand? Is Finesse right to crash out for his freedom, or did he play himself by signing that paperwork back in 2022? And what about J. Prince Jr.? Is that silence a sign of ultimate power, or a sign that the empire is finally starting to show some cracks? Drop your take in the comments right now. I'm going to be in there reading everything. If you want to stay plugged into the realest stories hitting the culture, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap the bell. We out.